What's going on, guys? Welcome to Mitch Motormass. Today we're going to be learning a little bit about the cost of owning motorcycles. So we'll be looking specifically at road bikes and the cost that entails with buying, maintaining, and running one of those bikes. We'll be focusing on those that are LAMS approved. So in Australia, we have a scheme where there's certain bikes that we can use during our probationary or early license period. So your learners, when you first get your motorcycle learners, all the way up to about 3 years experience when you can go to a full powered bike. Similar to the scheme in the UK where they have low powered bikes, unlike the US and most other countries where they can just use whatever bike they want, we go through a graduated licensing system that we eventually go through, just like we go through with our car licenses. So we'll be looking at the Australian market and how much it costs to do motorcycling in Australia. And we'll be focusing on the beginner market. What we're going to start off with is we're going to start talking about the three budgets that we have going. We're going to look at a really tight, you have barely any cash to spare, and motorcycling is you're actually looking at as a cheap alternative to owning a car. Then we've got the people that are looking for a little bit of a weekend toy and adventure, but don't have a lot of cash to flash. And then we'll be looking at how much does it cost to go through and buy a bike when you basically spare no expense and buy the best of everything and make sure it's running in tip-top shape. So to begin with, we're going to be looking at some of the upfront costs that come into it when you're buying a bike, which includes the bike itself and your safety equipment.
So when you look at getting into motorcycles, the most expensive part of it is buying the bike itself. We're going to take a look at 3 to 4 bikes in each of the budget categories and sort of look at what you're going to be paying for them in the Australian market currently. So we're going to start off with our extreme budget category. 3 good options, not everyone's cup of tea, but 3 good options are the 2008 to 2014 Kawasaki Ninja 250s, the 2010 to 2014 CBR 250Rs, or the 2010 to the 2018 CB300F. These are all 3 excellent beginner options that usually sit in the 1500 to 3500 Australian on the second-hand market. They're all excellent learner bikes, and I've ridden a couple of them, and I can guarantee you they are. And the Ninja and the CBR are really good options for those that are interested in sport bikes, while the CB300F is a great option for those that are wanting to sacrifice a minuscule amount of performance for some extra comfort. They are a little bit extra torquier compared to the 250s, so there is that. And both manufacturers are notoriously reliable brands, and they're always performing really well. So we've talked about some of the really cheap options. Now we're going to start looking at those bikes that are starting to get a little bit up in price, but aren't super expensive, and we're still mostly looking at the second-hand market rather than brand new motorcycles. We'll only really look at brand new motorcycles for those that aren't worried about money at all. So some 3 good options in the current market, a 2015 to about a 2020 Yamaha R3. I've done a review on that, so make sure to check it out on my video. My R3 has been my bike for about 5 years now. 2015, around that range, Honda CB650. Couldn't find too many on the market, so they might not be the best option. And a KTM 390 Duke are all really good options that sit in that really middle mark of about $3,500 to $7,500 Australian. They're all excellent choices for a beginner. Well, the R3 and the Duke are relatively newer bikes to the beginner market. They both only started production, the R3 being in 2015, the Duke a little bit later than that. And the CB650 is an excellent option for people that are looking for a bike with a little bit more displacement, little bit bigger of an engine. So our last category for our budgets, which we talked about, is those that have got a little bit more cash to splash. So you're thinking your Jordan Belforts in Wolf of Wall Street, just throwing around cash like it's no tomorrow. 3 really good options in this category is, and I'm a little bit partial to Yamaha, so I've thrown Yamaha in 2 of our categories. It's the Yamaha MT-07. They're extremely torquey and extremely fun, and excellent naked bike option. that'll just absolutely be an absolute ball. The next, getting a little bit pricier and a little bit more upmarket with some really good Italian manufacturers, is an Aprilia RS 660, which is an awesome sport bike that I've seen so many reviews on that just say it's an amazing bike, and it does have a LAMS approved version in Australia. And the last one being another really, really popular Italian manufacturer is the Ducati Monster 659, an awesome looking bike, and it looks absolutely amazing, and it's honestly a bike that I've always kind of dreamed about having, but it's just not practical for me to own because of the financial options for it. These are some awesome bikes, and you'll be looking at, depending on your preferences and whether you buy something a little bit older, spending about $10,000 to $23,000. Now, if you're finding the video super informative, make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and let me know, because this is a new style of video for me, and I'd like to know if people are liking this way away from adventure videos. The next thing we're going to talk about in terms of upfront costs is safety gear. Safety should be your top priority as a motorcyclist. It's an incredibly dangerous sport, and if you're not careful, you can no matter who you are, you may end up at the other end of a traffic accident. Investing in proper safety gear is essential for your well-being, but a big part about it, it does add to your overall cost, and it is something that you do have to consider when you're buying a bike. Some quality helmets, riding jackets, riding pants, gloves and boots should all be on your purchase list. There isn't too much difference between budgets, but let's get to it. So let's start with that extreme budget again. Helmets are definitely always going to be your first start, as they're the only legally required safety gear in Australia, and also the only gear that I would strongly discourage you from trying to pick up secondhand, even if you are on a really tight budget. Most helmets, especially those bought in a budget, are designed for one crash, then to be replaced, and do have a shelf life on them. You can still grab an Australian standard full face helmet for around $250 to $400. And then once you've got your helmet sorted, you should take yourself over to Facebook Marketplace or Gumtree to kit yourself out with some gloves, jackets, boots and pants. You should be able to pick up all of that for around $400 to $600 with some patience and a little bit of luck, bringing the total for gearing yourself up on a budget to around $650 to $1,000. Moving on to the more moderate budget, we can start looking at some brand new gear for everything and looking at a little bit more upmarket helmets. Helmets will start to go up a little bit in price, but if you're in a moderate budget, you should still only be spending about $400 to $750 for a decent quality and comfortable helmet. And at this price range, you can start to look at helmets with the more strict European standard rather than just the Australian standard. And then a good standard pair of road gloves should cost you about $80 to $120, but nothing too extreme. And then a decent jacket usually sits about $300 to $400, and then pants about $200 to $250. Boots, you'll look at spending around $200 to $300. They are something that I definitely wouldn't cheap out on if you've got the money. Overall, for your moderate budget, you're looking about $1,200 to $1,500. Lastly, for our gear that there's no expense spared, you can start to look at helmets that are likely to range from $900 to $1,300, depending on your personal preference around fit and extra features that are, let's be honest, for the most part, pretty pointless, but you're sort of starting to aim for those helmets that are extra comfortable, because that's something you do really want to invest in. You're not getting too much extra protection at that price range. Then you'll be looking at a high quality jacket, and you're looking at about $500 to $650 for that. Getting to around $200 for your gloves, about $300 for your pants, so not much different in that area. And then getting boots that are sitting between $400 and $500, getting those ones that have a little bit more flex, but some extra rigidity in certain areas. So if you're sparing no expense on gear, you should be looking at around $2,300 to $2,800 for the top quality brands. Most gear should be able to last at least 5 years comfortably, some of it getting to that 10-year mark, so you won't need to be updating your gear too often, but helmets have a shorter shelf life than the rest of the gear, so make sure to be replacing those and checking those regularly. The next thing to get you on the road is registration. This is fairly common to range from anywhere to $50 to $650, purely depending on which state you're in. As some states include a compulsory health or TAC for those in Victoria insurance in your registration. Regardless of what budget you're on, you can't really do anything to affect this. Make sure, if you're enjoying the video, to like and subscribe for more content like this. What we're going to be looking at now is we're looking at sort of what it is to get us started. So for the extreme budget, we're looking at $2,300 to $5,000, with about $3,500 being what you traditionally expect to pay up front. For a moderate budget, you're looking at $4,800 to $9,500, with $7,500 being a really good expectation as to what you're paying. And then for those who have no worry about sparing expenses, you can be spending up anywhere between $14,000 and $28,000, with personal preferences playing a huge part in how much you end up forking out. Now that we've got some of the upfront costs out of the way, you've got some other costs that you need to keep an eye on. The first other cost, and there's really only 2 or 3 costs to consider, and that's insurance. Insurance is important just in case you do have any unfortunate incidents that we talked about before, or crashes of theft of your pride and joy. It's really important to have that backup so you have a little bit of saving grace if something does happen. You've got at least a little bit of restitution coming your way. Depending on your budget, you can go from third party for around $300, which usually covers fire and theft as well, to quality comprehensive at around $200 annually, but a typical amount is usually about $800 to $900. Next thing, it's really important to keep your bike in tip-top shape to get the most out of your experience. You have 3 options when it comes to keeping your bike in tip-top shape. For the super budget conscious, it involves doing pretty much all of the maintenance yourself, which can keep maintenance costs down really, really low, which includes getting some fresh tyres, to around $200 to $400 a year quite easily. For those that can afford to lash out and give some professionals some of the tougher jobs, you're looking at just upgrading to about $350 to $500 a year mark. And for those that are happy to spare no expense to keep their pride and joy running smoothly, or have little to no time to do it, you're looking at around the $700 to $1,000 mark. It's important to understand that some years will be much cheaper for maintenance than others, as some expensive service or replacements are very infrequent, but make sure to keep that in mind and keep that money aside to take care of your bike.
So that brings our video to a close. Make sure to like, comment and subscribe, especially if you feel like I left anything out. In summary, those that are on a really strict budget will be looking about paying $2,300 to $5,000 up front, and then about $500 to $800 a year. Those that can afford a little bit more initial budget, you're looking probably at that $4,800 to $9,500 mark, give or take, and looking at about $900 to $1,400 a year. And those that have a lot of splash to cash to splash, you'll be looking at, depending on your preference in bike, about $14,000 to $2,800 up front, really depending on which manufacturers you like, which styles you like, and then spending $3,000 to $4,000 a year. Now, obviously, there's a lot that comes into it, but these are just some rough ranges that you can go through, and you can mix and match with the ranges that you want. You can spend a little bit more on your gear while not spending so much on your bike, or you can do the opposite, or you can forego insurance because you know you have those sorts of things covered. But once again, thanks for watching. Make sure to like, comment and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.